Welcome back to the Super Sunday Series Championship 2016 here live in Renton, Washington with AJ Soccer and Jarvis Yu, Grand Prix SeaTac 2015 champion back in his own your old stomping grounds, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're here battling at the championships, and you've brought Dark Jeskai to battle in your standard. Tell me why you decided to go with Dark Jeskai.
So after Reed won Grand Prix Oakland with a four-color rally, I thought there would be a bunch of backlash. And in fact, I thought Ben Rubin should have beaten Reed in the finals, because typically the Abzan deck is kind of favored versus Rally in that matchup due to Inoffensive the Foremost. And especially Rubin's
when he has Stubbs also.
Stubborn Denial and any blue counter spells and discard, I think it's a really horrifically bad matchup.
Yeah.
Fair enough, yeah. And you're also well known as a writer for Gathering Magic, and you had a preview card.
Yes.
What was that preview card?
It was Goblin Dark-Dwellers.
Well, you happen to be running 4 of that in your deck, so we're going to take a quick look at your deck list right now. So starting with the spell suite, really this is what Jeskai Black is known for, as being a heavy spell deck with lots of removal. You've got the full 4 Fiery Impulse, which is industry standard at this point. The full 4 Kolaghan's Command, which not so much industry standard at this point. A couple of discard spells, all the Crackling Dooms, and you've got an interesting suite of 1 and 2 ofs as well, with Duress, Read the Bones. Is that a copy of Treasure Cruise and a copy of Ruinous Path, I see. Why did you come to this spell suite?
Alright, so the old versions of Jeskai Black had Painful Truths, but if you notice Goblin Dark-Dwellers, which I'm playing as a 4 of, Painful Truths does not interact very well with that card. In fact, you will cast Painful Truths for 0 types of colors, so you will draw 0 cards. That is not very good. We just wanted to replace Utter End with Ruinous Path. They're sort of the same card, except you can flashback Ruinous Path with Dark-Dwellers.
Interesting.
And Awaken a Land.
Yeah, you can do
beat
that.
some people up.
Oh, I actually just did that versus Mono, right?
Yes!
Speaking of Goblin Dark-Dwellers, we are running a full 4 copies of the brand new Oath of the Gatewatch red rare there. Tell me about Goblin Dark-Dwellers.
So, basically, Standard is all about... a lot of matches in Standard are about valuing your opponent out, and Dark-Dwellers is just another 2-for-1 creature. It plays well with Crackling Doom, like you get a Shriek Maw sort of type effect and deal with them too. Ruinous Path is excellent. It's great with Kolaghan's Command because you just get to loop your Dark-Dwellers, and your opponents just eventually lose the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when all your cards are already 2-for-1s, having a 2-for-1 that gets back another 2-for-1, and then that 2-for-1 that gets a 2-for-1 can be gotten back by another 2-for-1?
Yes.
My God, Jarvis, when does it end?
It's like Inception.
Never ends.
It's exactly like Inception.
Now we have another new card in the deck. This one's a mythic. That is Kalitas, Traitor of Get.
How'd you get your hands on this mythic rare?
Yeah, and why are we running one of it in the main deck?
So, Neil Oliver actually had 2 Cletus in his main deck and has no mentors instead. I wasn't really comfortable with that because I think it's sometimes hard to close games without mentor. But Cletus is one of the best cards versus rally or beatdown strategies because of its text, which is if a non-token creature an opponent controls would die, instead exile that card and put a 2/2 black zombie onto the battlefield.
So it's sort of like a super Inoffensive the Foremost.
Yes, it's a super Inoffensive in this deck, and as you can tell, it's only 2 and 2 black to cast.
Now you were saying earlier that it's really good against the decks that you aren't so good against. What specifically does Kalitas do against those decks?
So versus the rally deck, the problem is your removal just sets them up for a huge rally in the endgame, and that almost always kills you. Instead, here, if you have Cletus in play and you start killing their creatures, all of them get exiled, and you have an army to beat them down with.
Fair enough. Monastery Mentor, Soulfire Grandmasters, and Jace's, pretty standard fare.
Yep, absolutely. And we've got the normal land mana-based Shambling Vent, of course, making an appearance. How important... I want to go back to Goblin Dark-Dwellers. Has Menace ever come up on the card, first of all? And is there any downside to having so many Dark-Dwellers in your deck that you eventually run out of spells?
I think it's almost impossible to run out of spells, given that a lot of your spells draw you into more spells. It's given Read the Bones will draw more spells. Kolaghan's Command will find you a creature or Jace to loot away, and it sort of gets out of control very quickly.
Absolutely.
I would not run less than 4. I think it's absurd to do so.
Interesting. And there is one more new card from Oath of the Gatewatch in your 75. It is in your sideboard, of course, as an extra copy of Kalitas. But I am, of course, talking about Flaying Tendrils. So, Flaying Tendrils is the new Infest of the gods, if you will. Tell me a little bit about Flaying Tendrils.
So, Infest is a pretty reasonable effect for most control deck sideboards. Here, it actually, alongside the other removal spells, you can set up a turn where you cast like a removal spell, or you cast Tendrils first, then you cast a removal spell, and all of the creatures that die will get exiled. So you can like lead off with Tendrils, then Fiery Impulse, and then their creatures are exiled, and people aren't really expecting that.
Right, clear out a Siege Rhino or something like that.
Yeah, although I probably would not bring it in versus Siege Rhino deck.
Yeah, of course not, yeah.
Another interesting note is, if you have Kalitas and you've cast Flaying Tendrils this turn, the controller of each of the creatures gets to decide which replacement effect applies. This is a very obscure ruling that almost never comes up, except Neil and I discovered it while testing.
Absolutely, yeah, that's a good thing to keep in mind. So the creatures that you control that die while you cast Flaying Tendrils, for example, Soulfire Grandmaster or Jace, you get to choose which replacement effect.
Well, the Kalitas only applies to opponent's creatures.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so they decide for their dudes.
So you actually have to ask them, do I get a 2/2 zombie for dying? And if they say yes, then you can put it into play. If they say no, well, then you can't put it into play.
Interesting. So they just get to choose. So the correct answer is to say, no, you don't get a 2/2 zombie.
Right.
But don't tell anybody.
Well, I mean, it's kind of a weird situation to be put in, because you kind of don't want to, like, if you have a rules knowledge advantage, I feel like it is ethical to use it, but not to try to game them into, like...
Sure.
AJ understands exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not Wild West days anymore.
No.
Exactly right. And so you have another copy of a card that I haven't seen in a little while, which is Mastery of the Unseen. What is that coming in for?
I just wanted to have another card to hedge versus control decks. I will bring it in these mirrors because it's almost impossible to remove the way that our particular deck is configured. And even the stock Jeskai Blacklist only has like 1 or 2 Utter End to kill it. And I can typically clear out their hand with Duresses before that happens, or just make them use on something else. And it will just take over the game. I'll just make a bunch of 2/2s and then they'll eventually die.
Fair enough. Negates and Disdainful Strokes, pretty self-explanatory, as well as the Radiant Flames, Infinite Obliterations, 2 of, and a Hollowed Moonlight. Fearing Rally a bit?
Yeah, I've played the deck a bunch, so I know how powerful it can be. Typically, I do not think actually 2 Obliterations typically beats the deck, but when you cast it and you're able to flash it back with Dark-Dwellers, it's a very different story.
God, Dark-Dwellers is sweet.
And back to Ruben's earlier question about Menace. The Menace thing comes up most versus Ramp, because they don't have many creatures in their deck, so a typical way for you to beat them, if you're going to beat them in game 1, is by attacking with the 4/4 a bunch and burning them out.
That's awesome.
Just get it through their 1 remaining elf or whatever.
1 remaining giant creature is what actually happens.
Yep.
Worldbreaker cannot block that guy, by itself, which is great.
Big deal.
Most of the lists have 4 Worldbreaker, some number of Ulamog, and some number of Kozilek.
So, deck is sweet. You're 3-0 in Standard right now. What have you beaten thus far?
The first match I played was actually against a guy from China playing 4-color Rally, as I expected. Game 1 is typically pretty bad for Dark Jeskai in general because your removal spells don't line up that well.
Right.
He mulled to 5 though and had a somewhat awkward draw. Cast 2 Collected Companies, but I managed to squeak through damage before I died to a big rally.
Sure.
After that, I played against Esper Dragons. I lost game 1 because I drew like 4 Fiery Impulses and he had an Ochita, and I'm just like...
Yeah, those don't match up well.
Yeah, that sucks. And he also, he had a counter for my second Impulse whenever I tried to cast it. So
yeah, 2 for 1 myself, 2 for 1 myself.
Yeah,
still died to Ojitai.
The next 2 games I got him because I had less dead cards in my deck, and I also knew where to choke him on mana essentially. And he did not seem like the most experienced player in control areas.
Sure.
And the last match I just played was versus a Tarka Red. I won game 1 because he had to 2 for 1 himself to get Kalitas off the board.
Kalitas is a tough card
Good
for
old
Mono Red to beat, that's for sure.
And the second game, he kept a slow hand with 2 Abbots, which are like pretty good in the matchup, but he wasn't applying pressure quickly enough, so I was able to just do whatever I wanted.
Right.
So the new cards coming out to play in a
Yes.
pre-established archetype, really.
Yes.
Dark-Dwellers, Kalitas, and Flaying Tendrils all showing their worth, even in an archetype as established as Dark Jeskai.
You are not the only one playing this deck also, right? You work with a couple other players?
Neil actually did a lot of work on it after I sent him the initial list.
Sure.
He was
This is
like
Neil Oliver.
Neil
Yes.
Oliver, also Grand Prix champion of Las Vegas a few
One.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah, Las Vegas
Yeah.
won, national team member.
Yeah, very, very good. He had a lot of ideas about the deck. He even tried the 1 blue red 2/3 at one point, but it turned out to be a little bit underpowered.
I have seen.
Jorkel the Ruin Diver.
Yes.
Sure. Sure.
Got you.
I've seen
Hopefully that's what the card's called.
Yeah, I'm pretty
Nah,
sure.
I
it is.
don't know.
Yeah.
I've actually seen that card hitting some tables, so
Yeah.
probably wasn't too far off on that.
Yeah, we just didn't have enough time because both of us are playing in the upcoming Modern Pro Tour as well. So we actually did a lot more testing of Modern. We're not
Sure.
on the same team, but
Sure.
I personally spent a lot of time just playing Modern. Kind of annoys me that the ban list is not online yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it is what it is.
Speaking of the Pro Tour, you're obviously chasing silver,
Yes.
chasing gold.
Yes.
Somebody helped you get a few more points recently. I'm not going to say who.
Oh,
it was
it-
me. I might have done
Yeah,
that.
it might have been Ruben.
I might have conceded in round 15 of some
Yeah,
GP.
we were dead for cash, though. I
Yeah, of
did
course.
the math.
Yeah,
But,
yeah. No,
I
I
certainly
don't need the
appreciate it.
points, and of course,
I
you know.
certainly appreciate it.
Of course, absolutely. And so you're well on your way. to
Basically, you
silver?
owe him everything.
Yeah, I
Yes.
expect.
Okay.
I expect to check.
That was
in
my
the mail.
takeaway from that.
So
Yes.
at this point in the season, where are you? Are you comfortable with where you are? Are you happy? Are you ahead of schedule? Behind schedule?
I would be happier winning a few more matches in GPs, obviously, but
course.
I'm currently at 13 points before the Pro Tour, so +3 minimum for the PT would be 16. Then that means I just have to pick up 2 for silver somewhere, which seems very,
Yeah,
very,
not-
very doable.
Yeah, not a bad
And
place to be.
Not all my slots are filled up, so.
Perfect. Well, sounds great. You're 3-0 in standard. Sounds like you've got a
Yes.
sweet deck. You're up against you're 3-0 against 3 very different decks. I think is a big
Yes,
thing.
yes.
So as the standard format evolves, maybe Dark Jeskai is just still the place to be.
I would not be surprised.
Yes,
I like that deck a lot.
I played it in Grand Prix Indy, and it did actually feel like everyone was ready for it at that tournament, but that's because there was a million of the mirror, and
Right,
I think
right.
people had finally figured out how to make Abzan beat Jeskai, which is a huge deal. Before, like, Jeskai was mauling Abzan.
Right. Well, now there's the rally shakeup
Yes.
and a whole new set that's
Right.
really turning things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I switched to Dark Jeskai, and plus I just felt like playing something different. Especially, I sort of figured that people would focus more on draft because draft was first.
Right.
And then
it's
so
also the top eight.
you might be able to prey upon weaker players playing a Dark Jeskai strategy. Sometimes Rally doesn't give you a lot of room to maneuver around your opponents. You just
Yeah.
play your cards and
Hope your
Hope they're
Coco
good.
hits.
and hope for the best.
Yes, I've had some misses with Coco, and it's really
Me too.
infuriating.
Yeah.
You guys aren't in love with the Coco? Is that?
We are in love with the Coco. We're not in love with the Coco missing.
Yeah.
Oh, the Coco's not in love with you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're
I
spurned
Well,
lovers.
Sometimes we're
Jarvis,
spurned.
Yeah.
Jarvis, thank you so much for
Yeah.
talking with us about your deck. This deck is going to be posted after all the standard rounds are
Yes.
up, so you guys won't have seen this while he's playing Dark Dwellers Jeskai.
Sure.
Dark Jeskai. That's a pretty
Right?
good
Sure.
name.
Instead of Dark Jeskai. You see what I did was I took the words.
Wait,
and
but what does dwellers mean in this context?
Well, there's a card called Goblin Dark-Dwellers.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
We'll see you soon.